Welcome back to FPL Therapy and welcome to Season 2. This is a weekly podcast hosted by me, FPL Raptor, where each week we are joined by a different guest to guide you through the FPL season and hopefully make you laugh along the way because everybody needs a little bit of FPL therapy. We actually technically have our first ever back-to-back guest because the man that was here in Game Week 38 to close out Season 1 is back again to open up Season 2. And I couldn't think of a better person for it. It is Mr. FPL Pras. Pras has 9 top 25k finishes and 5 top 10k finishes, finishing 4.1k last season. And he's also co-host of the FPL Wire and is part of the team launching the new Solio Analytics as well, which sounds very exciting. Pras, how you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, and thank you for having me back. And yeah, it does feel like I'm still thinking about the quiz questions that I got wrong in Game Week 38. But no, pleasure to be back. And it's such an exciting time, right?
Yep.
FPL just started, and who better to also talk this through with than you?
Yeah, we're going to try and be a calming influence because everyone gets a little bit overly excited. I'm also going to be entirely transparent. Pras will know this. Our producer will know this. That was about the 15th attempt at that intro, but we got there in the end. I'm a little bit rusty, so do bear with. If you're excited for FPL Therapy to be back, or if you're new to it, please do consider rating 5-star if you're listening on audio, or if you're on YouTube, please do subscribe. I don't think people realize how much that helps. So if you've sort of been lurking and you've never subscribed, or you've never rated 5-star, please do consider doing so. So much planned for this season, including a new set, which hopefully looks pretty decent.
Looks nice.
Yeah, it feels good to be here. Also, a little bit more housekeeping. There is an FPL Therapy League, which is VGFURI. It will be on your screen or linked in the description on audio, but VGFURI. Make sure to join that league, and we'll give a shout out to the winner at the end of it as well. So as I said, we are both of the perspective that what you should be doing in FPL right now isn't hyper-fixating on which £4.5 million defender to pick or which £6.5 million midfielder. We need to look a little bit broader and more macro at this point. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the time to soak in information because as the season progresses, by Game Week 37, we learn literally next to nothing. But Game Week 1 and before, we're learning everything. New signings, preseason, formations, new managers, not too many this time. But yes, that's the phase you should be in.
So with that in mind, the aim for today is going to be a bit more sort of macro holistic look. We're going to focus on some of the rule changes and how that affects which sort of players we might pick. We're going to talk about chip strategy a little bit because we both love it, but also the changes have made it very important to focus early season on chip strategy. Usually what we'd say is, well, don't worry about it for now. Focus on when you might wildcard, but other than that, you don't worry about it. Whereas now you need to think about it. And then we're also going to go through our latest drafts as well. And we are both on the same chip strategy at the moment. I was going back and forth on it, watched a video by a fantastic creator called Pras, and he convinced me that it was probably the right way to lean as of right now. So we'll discuss that today. Sure. But what we need to do is make sure that we also give the alternative perspective and that we don't lead everyone down the same path.
We are not going to tell you what to do. We'll give you all the options.
Maybe not. So the first thing I want to discuss today then is the defensive contributions change. So I will recap it for those that aren't aware. But so for defenders, every game that they achieve a combined 10 clearances, blocks, interceptions, and tackles, which FPL calls CBIT, they will get 2 points in FPL. They can't get 1. They can't get 3. It's capped at 2. So it's 0 or 2. Some of the better players achieved that in about 50% of their games last season. So you can pick up 2 extra points just by being defensive-minded. That opens up a lot of doors. For midfielders and forwards, ball recoveries are added to that. So they must achieve 12 plus of CBIRT, which is basically the same as defenders, but you add ball recoveries into that. Don't know why they added that, but fair enough, just to make it a little bit more complicated. And again, importantly, this is capped at 2. So all you need is that 10 plus in each game. So to put that into perspective...
12 for the midfield.
And 12 plus for the midfielders, exactly. So to put that into perspective about how much you could stand to gain, theoretically, 76 points.
Right.
But last season, FPL have very kindly calculated it for us. Tarkovsky would have been the player that gained the most with 44 points. And Caicedo would be the player that gained the second most with 42. So yes, theoretically, you can gain up to 76, but you're probably looking at, for those better players that are quite defensive-minded, playing for teams like that, you're probably gaining between 30 and 45 points. I'm going back and forth on this, Pras, because that's a serious game. That is a fair enough game. But then I also look at that as that's probably less than a point per FPL game week that you're gaining for each player. Yeah. But obviously you can have various different. So where do you stand right now on this defensive contribution change? How much is it affecting who you're picking in FPL?
So, I mean, there's so many aspects to this that let's try to break it down. So firstly, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of some people I see are either underrating it or overrating it. So we need to rate it. And I think what the rating is what you said, which is a point per game week on average. Or people tend to think of clean sheet probabilities. So if Arsenal have 50% clean sheet odds in a game, Everton have 20% clean sheet odds in a game, you need to add now for Tarkowski another 25%. 25% is basically 1 point off a clean sheet point.
That's a great way of looking at it. Okay.
So if you have a fixture, Gabriel is 50%, Tarkowski 20%. Tarkowski now almost the same as Gabriel. So that's huge. But then the second layer of this is, what is the price? Tarkowski is now almost the same price as a Gabriel. So the thing that we need to look out for, who are the gems at the 4.5 level that can deliver these kinds of points? So some of the promoted defenders, we don't have the data for yet, how they will perform in the league. Those are the things that I'm really interested in. Between Tarkowski and Gabriel, I think the Premier League have priced this really well, where they're now close, but also priced close.
Yeah, because we'll discuss Arsenal defence, because obviously you're quite keen on that in your draft. People are saying, oh, you can't pick Gabriel now because of defensive contributions. I'm like, clean sheets still exist.
Yes.
And so do headed goals. So it's not just defensive. You ideally, and this doesn't exist, otherwise the player will be priced at like 8 million in defense, but you want someone that keeps lots of clean sheets, has goal threat, and has defensive contribution capabilities. But normally the players that have those defensive contribution capabilities aren't going to keep as many clean sheets.
Correct.
Or again, they aren't an attacking threat. So there is a balance to find, but that's why someone like Tarkowski is great, because he plays for a defence which can keep clean sheets. He loves a bullet header, although in prior seasons, maybe not as much last season. And then also defensive contribution. So we're looking for those gems, as you say. But there is going to be at least, I would say 3 or 4 4.5 defenders this season that just mop up defensive contributions. And the earlier you can get on them, obviously, the better.
Yeah.
So we've spoke about centre-backs a lot there. The top 10 defenders for, I'm going to call them DC points, so I don't keep having to use those really long words. But the top 10 defenders for DC points in 24-25 would have all been centre-backs. So no fullbacks entered that top 10. So do you think like the meta in FPL now, or like the template, will be to shift towards 4.5 centre-backs like a Richards at Crystal Palace, as opposed to going for someone more exciting like Juve at West Ham or De Cowper at Brighton? Do you think that will be what the template starts to move towards?
So it's, again, we need to do the same math like we did with clean sheet points, with attacking returns versus the DEFCON points, or whatever you want to call it, DC points.
DEFCON, I like that.
Yeah. It's not mine. It's like going around in some discords. So again, if you have a defender that is getting an attacking return every 4 games, let's say that attacking return is 4 points, because it could be an assist, it could be a goal, right? There's more likely to be an assist. Again, it's 1 point every game. So then you compare it with your other centre back who can do that. The other thing though is for fullbacks. Now this is just a general thing of most teams. Fullbacks always have competition because they run a lot. They cannot play every single game. Centre backs, when you go back, I remember the quiz. People who've played every single game, they were centre-backs. In fact, Collins was in there, Van Dijk was in there. Now, these are the guys who will not only get the minutes, so higher chance of scoring an odd bullet header, they're also now higher chance of hitting this threshold of hitting the 2 points. I just think it makes centre-backs overpowered, as we call them in some games.
Yeah, I think so. And we'll see when we move on to your draft. You've got a decent number of little centre-backs in there and not many attacking full-backs. Someone made a really good point. I couldn't find the original tweet, and I'm sure you know this, when a player gets defensive contributions in a game, it's probably in a game where they are defending, right? It's not going to be in a game where they're dominating the ball. So the issue I think we might find is if you pick 3 4.5 defenders that you rotate in for nice fixtures, the fixtures that you end up playing them for are probably not going to be the fixtures as often anyway that they pick up the DEFCON points. Yeah. Whereas then when they're on the bench playing in that really, really tricky fixture, let's say Tarkowski against Arsenal where you'd never play him, he's almost definitely getting 10 in there and getting the 2 FPL points.
If he gets a clean sheet, it's a double-digit return.
Exactly. So do we now start either firstly not rotating as much, so pick 3 defenders that you start most weeks and have a couple of cheapies on the bench, or do we start now viewing it as I actually want to play my cheap defenders in the more difficult fixtures? I don't know how to sort of adjust my thinking based on this.
Well, a clean sheet point is still more than a recovery point. So I think that's the first thing. So you need to be prepared for bench pain, if that's what you want to call it, because yes, Tarkowski will get 10 pointers in those odd games. There's actually some work already being done by the models that are looking at the percentage possession versus the DEFCON points.
That's a great idea.
And that's actually a very good correlation. The lower possession you have, the more points you accumulate. So teams like Everton, Nottingham Forest, there's a reason why, because their strategy involves come to me and then I'll counter you, which is not true of teams like Villa or Brighton or Bournemouth. This is why you don't see their centre-backs up there. So we'll get data around this, but I think 2 things that you've mentioned, you still have to target fixtures. Just be prepared, because what you don't want is you've benched now a defender with a good clean sheet potential who gets a clean sheet instead, but you played the guy who conceded 2 goals but got 2 recovery points. Well, that's useless. So yes, there will be more pain. I think the one fundamental change in terms of how people need to think about it is if you have a problem, if you had a Solanke, he gets injured game week 3, you really wanted to play Solanke, you actually can just say, you know what, I'll play Tarkowski away to Arsenal instead now, and I'll wait for a week.
Yeah.
So you can be more patient now because your bench depth is actually really deep with a good floor. So you don't have to rush and panic into transfers. You can be a lot more patient.
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's going to be even less reason to take a hit. Not only do we have the 2 wild cards, and by the way, now at AFCON, we've got the top up of 5 free transfers. We're going to have all of these. We're not going to be taking many hits this season.
We don't need any.
I'd be very surprised if we do. I will just say, so we're already saying how fantastic centre-backs are, how much this might change the way we play. There's also been a change to the bonus point system, which further benefits defensive players. So it used to be successful tackles net, which was successful tackles minus unsuccessful. So if you had several unsuccessful tackles, you wouldn't be very high up in the bonus. They've now changed it to just 2 BPS for every tackle won. So in a game where a defender gets 6 tackles won, they get 12 more in the bonus. Like centre-backs are going to be mopping up DEFCON points and then mopping up bonus points as well. You could see like a clean sheet. So what could a clean sheet get up to? It could get something crazy, but it would get up to 11.
You could get 11.
11 just from a clean sheet.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to FPL, they've actually re-upped the bonus because last year, if you remember, there was these negative points for goal conceded, which meant that, you know, the highest scoring defender was 149, which I remember from the quiz.
Yeah. It was low.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they have basically, I think, just offset that.
Just reversed it back, yeah.
So now defenders are more relevant, but in the context of centre-backs being relevant, now I think, yes, we will see centre-backs scoring 170 points if Gabriel plays the whole season, even 200 points, Van Dijk, 200 points. Now that's a lot for the price you pay, 6 million.
We've spoken a lot about centre-backs and defenders. How does this change the way that you feel about defensive midfielders? We'll discuss one that we both really like and is in your draft. I'm seeing a lot of people just putting defensive midfielders in with like... for me, I'm not very keen on putting a player in that just gets you DEFCON points, right? So Caicedo's a good example. I know with the added points, he would have done quite well last season. I think it was like 140, 150 points. But for me, no attacking threat, not on set pieces, good for minutes as well. But I like, for example, something like Anderson because there's also the potential for set pieces, can grab the odd goal. Tonali is there as well, gets the odd goal. Rodri, Rice. I feel like if I'm going to go for a player that gets DEFCON points, I want something else. Or do you think it's enough to just have someone that gets tons of these CBIT points?
I mean, it'll give you a higher floor again if you have somebody who gets a lot of these DEFCON points. But the reason why everyone's picking them right now is because nobody else has emerged. So what happens in preseason, as we all know, there will be a midfielder which is 5 million, 5.5 million that scored 3 goals in preseason. We had this 2 years ago with Palmer. Of course, Palmer wasn't a preseason thing. It was a transfer later. But they emerge. They are not people known in the beginning of the season. Now, last season, we were massively spoiled. If you remember, Clivert, Rogers, Smith Rowe, Navi Didi. Like there were so many 5.5 mids with upside that people said, you know what, of course, DEFCON didn't exist then, but people had so many choices. This year, we don't have many. Pricing is such that under 6.5 million, people don't have ideas, maybe promoted midfielders, which we will find out about. So when you have lack of ideas, you say, the guy with the higher floor, I'll just go with that guy instead. But this is going to change over preseason.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. One of the questions which we'll answer later on was about the cheap midfielders, because if we're viewing it from the lens that we used to, no, there aren't. Like you've got like an Adingra, but there's not a ton of options. So you either then don't go that low, or if you're dropping into that price, we maybe are starting to look at the more defensive midfielders. Yeah. I was a bit skeptical when I first saw this, but I think the balance has been really nice. I think FPL have capped it well so that it's not overpowered, but they've also priced players accordingly. So I think they've got a really nice balance here. We always like to criticize FPL, but I think they've nailed this part.
No, absolutely. If Tarkowski, Murillo, Caicedo, they were all 4.5, right? People would just pick them in their team and then load up on premiums instead. So I think, they've actually captured this point.
Absolutely. So that's the first change. The second change, and I'm going to have to rein Pras in here because I know I'll get a bit overly excited, is the new double chips. Right. So just to recap that as well, they've essentially given us 2 of every chip and then removed the assistant manager. First thoughts about assistant manager being removed? Are you happy? Sad?
Happy with that. Look, I think the chip itself, people confuse when we are unhappy versus when we are happy. Assistant manager was actually a great chip for engaged managers because it needed so much planning but the point was it was such high variance, like a 20-point swing, actually a 40-point swing. If you picked Nistelrooy versus me picking, who did I pick? I forget. Slot. So let's say I get like 12 points. You could have got 20, but you didn't. It's like too big of a swing for one chip. And I didn't like the mechanics of it. So I'm happy it's gone.
I would agree with that. So So technically, we don't have chips active for any more weeks this season. We've just got 3 more chips versus the assistant manager, which was active for 3 game weeks. Importantly, though, you must use the first version of each chip between game weeks 1 and 19, and then the second version 20 to 38. So you can't carry those chips over. Now, we've always had this with the wildcard. So we're used to having a chip that we have to play in the first half. But you're now chucking a bench boost, free hit, and triple captain that you have to use in the first half of the season. And then all of a sudden, like I say, we've now got to start planning. On top of that, they've then decided, do you know what? There's not many players that we'd want to own from AFCON in FPL. But regardless, we'll top you up to 5 free transfers ahead of game week 16. I want to make this very clear, and content creators will remind you, but they top you up to 5 free transfers. They don't give you 5. So do not go into game week 16 with a few saved. You've basically got to just spend them and use them all ahead of game week 16 by game week 15. What do you make of the change? What's your early thoughts on how this might impact? Because it's going to have a big impact on us.
It will have a big impact because if you want to talk about, the luck factor increasing, of course, chips add luck, right? I mean, you may choose 1 week to free hit and it turns out to be a bumper week where everyone you like game week 34 last year. Or you may choose another week where the team you originally had does better. So it adds a little bit of a luck factor, but I think their attempt was to make the game fun. Is for people who like to use chips early to do that and then still have chips at the back end of the season. So I think it achieves their objective. So I get it. But now, us engaged managers, we need to use that to our advantage and how we plan our game week 1 team even.
So this is I'm going to do a similar structure to how you did it in your video. I'd like to go just through free hit, wildcard, bench boost. So I know you're doing this off the top of your head. I've got stuff in front of me if you need it. Free hit, what's your thoughts on kind of early versus late? What are the key windows that you're looking at? This, for me, feels a little bit harder than wildcard. I don't think there is a standout free hit window as such.
Yeah. I think you're right. And to start off with free hit, first you need to explain the fact that after game week 13, there are a lot of good fixtures for top teams. For Man City, for Liverpool, for Newcastle, even Chelsea and Arsenal have good fixtures in blocks there. So you could say, I'll free hit to get, triple Man City, triple Liverpool, triple Newcastle, and that'll be great. But then game week 15 and game week 19 are mirrors of each other. So you may get that really nice free hit team, but you also want those same players for game week 19 as well. So a better strategy, at least on paper, it looks like, is to play a free hit before all of these good fixtures, load up on these players so you don't have to play a free hit for them.
Yeah.
So that's the first starting point, that after game week 13, maybe free hit isn't the best idea unless you want to have a defensive strategy and say, I'll just leave it and I'll see. Maybe there's a weather postponement, something happens and I can just play it then, or an injury. So if you're now talking before game week 13, then you have to really look at your team and say, which are the players I want? And the week that the players you don't have a good fixture, that's your free hit week. So if you're on Salah at the beginning, the week that Salah has a bad fixture and Haaland has a great fixture, that's a good free hit week. So I think that's how people need to think about the free hit. It really depends on your game week 1 starting team.
I would agree with that. So pre-13 probably makes sense. I do quite like the save the free hit plan because things always do happen. We have had in maybe 2 of the last 3 seasons a pre-game week 19 double due to a random postponement or issue that's cropped up. So there is the chance that a double pops up and you don't have those players in place. You've already used your wild card. A free hit, I don't mind. Ben Krellin, but this was when it first got announced, so he might not still be on this strategy. But I remember he said, I might end up saving a bench boost or a free hit for the possibility of a random event happening. So I don't hate it. But yeah, early doors looks good. So game week 3, Liverpool play Arsenal. I know a lot of people want the Salah, maybe a Frimpong in there. They might want Saka. They might want a Gabriel. If you're sat there right now and you're draft with like 5 from those, immediately that looks like an okay week to do it.
Yeah.
But then, like when you look at the fixtures in game week 3, there's lots of players that you might not want to own, but I don't see a ton where I'm like, I desperately want to own them. You want those standout fixtures. Like you say, in game week 15 and 19, City play Sunderland, Liverpool play Leeds, Newcastle play Burnley. That's the sort of week you want to free hit in.
Correct.
I don't see that opportunity in game week 3. So you were looking at game week 6, which again, Newcastle faced Arsenal, and a lot of people might have a couple from those, but I reckon maybe 3 or 4 potentially if you load up. And Man City play Burnley, Forest play Sunderland. So if you don't have many Man City and Forest players, immediately you can get 6 from there.
And Chelsea play Brighton at home, Spurs play Wolves at home. So yeah, I think that gives a window. But I think it's the captaincy, right? If you're not playing a free hit, you're going to struggle to have Haaland.
Yeah.
So I'm taking on Salah away to Crystal Palace in game week 6 with Haaland home to Burnley. Can it work? No. I mean, last season it happened a lot. But it's an aggressive free hit. But it basically means people who don't play a free hit then will either have to use transfers to get to a Haaland or just have to ignore him. So for that 1 week, I think there is upside there.
Awesome. So we'll move on to wildcard. Then you've essentially spoken about one window already, which is game week 13. Is this, would you say, a clear favorite strategy for you? Are there any other windows that you like that you'd be potentially looking at?
So 13 is there. I think there's another one, which is game week 7.
Yep.
So game week 7 wildcard would basically include you not having many Arsenal players at all. Now they play Leeds at home in game week 2. But apart from that, the first 5 apart from that aren't the best. So you could have a strategy where I have no Arsenal, game week 7, then I load up on Arsenal. They've got great fixtures after. This game week 7 wildcard also allows you to basically sell Salah in game week 5 or 6, get Haaland, get him for Burnley, and then wildcard back Salah. So
I like that. So start with Salah, get the first 6, pivot in game week 6 to Haaland, and then maybe wildcard Salah back in and also load up on your Arsenal.
Correct. And then there's a very early wildcard. Now, because you can roll transfers through, what's going to happen is Gyökeres is going to join Arsenal. Liverpool continue to sign 100 million players. So a lot of changes. João Pedro may become a thing or not. So you will learn a lot. So by game week 3, you have 3 free transfers, but you go, I want to make 8 changes. You roll your 3, wildcard. So an early wildcard is never a bad thing, especially with the new rules of using your free or rolling through your free transfers. So especially if you were playing a bench boost, I know we'll come to that, an early bench boost, an early wildcard could be an option that you can fall back upon. You don't have to plan for it, but you could fall back upon.
On wildcard 7, I was looking at this. It's the week before an international break. So how much do you care about an international break and wildcarding post or pre? Do you think we overemphasize how important that is? And do you think if in 7 it makes more sense you just go the week before? Because I remember talking about it last season. Like, you can't wildcard before an international break. It's like this golden rule that we speak about, but does it make sense?
In theory, yeah, anything can happen in international, but anything can happen also in game week 8 or 9. Your players can still get injured. So I understand it. The earlier thought used to be international break is nice for price changes and stuff. That has changed. Now,
no prices really change over the international break.
For 10 days between the international break, nothing really happens. And that's now been a trend for the last 2-3 years. So that myth is busted. And the other thing is because you can carry 3-4 transfers into your wildcard as well, if anything happens, it's not like you have one free transfer after wildcard, not necessarily.
Perfect. So in terms of wildcard windows, then we've got early, if you bench boost 1 or you just make a mistake and you think you need to improve your team, after that first international break in game week 4, wildcard 7 and then wildcard 13 as 3 possible windows. I don't think you'd want to save the wildcard much later than that, unless you get to 13 and you think, actually, my team looks good.
That's right. If you have 5 free transfers in game week 13 and then you go, you know what, I can get the guys I want. Yeah, then save it. Like, there's never a harm in saving it until game week 19. Maybe you can use the 5 free transfers that FPL gives you and then wildcard in a position of strength and still roll through those 5 free transfers. That will be a nice position to be in.
Wildcard 13. So if we were to wildcard in 13 to about game week 20, that period there is going to be fun. Like, let's say you go into your wildcard with 3, 4, 5 free transfers. That's going to be then topped up to that once FPL give you that around AFCON. And then obviously you go into that really nice spell of fixtures with just almost unlimited free transfers where you're just picking off little luxury transfers here and there. I think it might be the case that if we get to that point, we've got so many free transfers, we're maybe making premium swaps. So it's like selling a Haaland to pivot back to Saka or Palmer, and we might be in that luxury position to do that. And
if you are, let's say, game week 10, you're in that luxury position with 5 free transfers, you may even say, I'll wildcard now, take my 5 free transfers, continue to be aggressive even from game week 10 onwards.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I just think it'll depend on how much information we learn and how wrong we have it in game week 1 on how best you can attack that period.
Awesome. So the final chip to rediscuss, because triple captain, you just play it in a week where you like your captain and you don't need to plan for it, is bench boost. So I think there are 2 options for me anyway, or 3. Bench boost in game week 1, which we'll discuss in a second. You bench boost after your first wildcard, so in game week 8 or 14. So you basically wildcard with a stronger bench and then bench boost the week after that. Or you do what we said with the free hit, which is just wait. Your bench might look good in 1 week randomly if you've got a decently strong bench and you just play it then. There have been so many weeks before where I've been like, oh, if I still had my bench boost, I'd be pretty happy paying it. But obviously, you would have to make sure that your bench is strong enough and that you've not got rubbish players on it. Yeah. So start with bench boost 1. Why does this make a lot of sense to you, or at least is a viable strategy?
So couple of reasons. One is this game week 13 wildcard we've talked about. I think there will be a lot of premiums we'll need to attack. You can't have City and Liverpool players and not be completely stretched on budget, right? Try making a team now with Haaland, Salah, Marmoush, Wirtz. You can't. So, of course, we'll have a slightly higher budget by then, but still, it's going to be very tight. Gems will emerge, so we'll get there. But I think I want to leave the option open to get a non-playing forward 2 non-playing forwards if I need to. A 4.0 defender. And so from that perspective, I think bench boosting later will only limit my flexibility for this really rubbish chip. I don't want to be constrained on whether I can get Haaland and Salah or not. So that's the first thought, that I don't want to do it after 13. I want Liverpool, City, Newcastle players from 13. Going back before, it's a case of find a week where it works. Game week 1 works because you have all perfect, your video talked about it. You have perfect information. Going into Friday, if basically Thomas Frank comes and says, Udogi is injured, well, get the other guy, or, you can change it.
Yep.
But in game week 3, if you're ready for your bench boost, but Udogi is injured, you have to use a transfer to change him. So it's basically using all the information, which is not perfect. Things change. Nkunku is an example. But my counter to that is you will not pick Nkunku and Kwanzaa if you're going for a game week 1 bench boost. You're picking 5 solid centre-backs, for example, 2 defensive mids or 1 defensive mid that always plays. So you just be made secure.
That's exactly. So as soon as I started to pivot towards a bench boost 1, I removed Hudson-Odoi. I thought, that's a slight risk. I removed Kudus because I thought that's a slight risk. So I think if you are going to commit to a bench boost in 1, unless you want to take the risk and you're happy with the potential of only 13 of your 15 starting, I think you do go for secure minutes. And I also I don't mind the aggressive bench boost with really good fixtures and then wildcard straight out of it in 2, 3, 4. That could work really well. But I don't like forcing an early wildcard. So for me, if I am going to go with bench boost 1, it's going to be good secure minutes for hopefully all of my players, and in a structure that doesn't force me into a wildcard in the first few weeks. It may be that I decide to anyway. I might look at my team and go, made a mistake, bench boost failed, I've got too much money invested around my team, let me change this. Like, let's say Haaland and Salah both go absolutely nuclear, and I decide to pivot, then we can, of course, wildcard in 4. But I don't think you ever want to force yourself into that. Before the season's already started, you have to wildcard in 4. It just feels a little bit too constrained. Yeah. So would that be your advice for a bench boost 1, is to try and leave yourself open? Yeah, and I think picking robust players with good minutes is a good strategy anyway, whether you're on bench boost or not. Sometimes bench boost 1 can also give you opportunities, right? Let's imagine Leeds signed that goalkeeper, not now, but in game week 2. You had that keeper, you got a bench boost out of him, and he can just rot on the bench now. Yeah. So there are positives as well for actually going early. But yeah, I think my advice would be, you don't have to play it in 1. If you have a good team of 15, and there's enough cheapos available if you want to go for a 5.5 striker or a 4.0 defender, that you can play it in that period. Absolutely. Cool. So hopefully that's been helpful then. So to recap, wildcard 13 onwards looks great. But if you want to go in 7, there's also a decent fixture turn, especially for Arsenal. Wildcard 4 post the first international break would work quite well. The free hit really comes after, I think, you decide the wildcard strategy. So if you want a wildcard super early, you'll obviously save the free hit for a little bit later. Yeah. Maybe you do decide to play it around 15 or 19. And then if you play it late, obviously you'll have to shift it before. And then bench boost, I really am leaning towards bench boost 1. I suppose another strategy is try and bench boosting just before you play your first wild card. But the issue with that then is it's probably going to be game week 7 onwards. And you just don't know that you're going to need... if you end up needing 3 transfers for a bench boost, it defeats the purpose of playing the bench boost. And it's during Europe. Yeah, and exactly. The later you go, it's during Christmas period as well. Yeah. This is why when you talk, though, I'm just like, yeah, Pras is right. I just end up yeah, Pras. But bench boost 1 is also imperfect. Like, you could have a 7-point bench boost. But then, you know what? You just move on with your life. Like, you're done. Well, the bench boost last year, there were a couple of people that really, really smashed it. But it was like flying around. It was like, this person got 11, this person got 8, this person got 12. And I was just like, why did we spend so much time stressing over this? It would be more important for me for it to not affect my transfers going forward than actually to hit it out of the park in that bench boost. Also, the psychological fun of starting with a points advantage is nice. Like, even if you get 7 points, you got 7 more points than someone else that didn't play the bench boost. So it's nice to start the season well. Yeah. Especially if you're in your mini leagues, you can give it the big one, can't you, if you're top of your mini league? Awesome. Cool. So what we're going to do now is actually just get straight into our teams. We're not going to save it right for the end of the podcast. I'd like to just jump in. Right. So if you are watching on YouTube, again, please do consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. What we've got here is Pras's draft. Now, I want to make it very clear, and Pras will as well, he's probably not overly fixating here on like this specific 6.5 is the one to go for. It's more so, what is the structure? How can you build the bench boost? And then again, we're looking a little bit at sort of DEFCON points here as well. So I'll read it out for those on audio, and then you can sort of talk us through it player by player. So in goal, Sanchez, 5 million. You've then got a very, very, very expensive sort of 5-man defense. You've got Murillo at 5.5, Van Dijk at 6, Gabriel at 6, Saliba at 6, and then you've got Konsa at 4.5. So your cheapest defender, 4.5, and then outside of that is 5.5 and above. Still, though, the defenders are cheaper generally this year, right? They're not like 8 million.
Yeah, there's no trend.
Exactly. And then in the midfield, you've got Salah, Kudus, Ndiaye, Palmer, and Anderson at 5.5 being the cheapest. And then your front three is Muniz, with the rumours that he could be off to Leeds and be their first choice. And then Solanke and Welbeck. And then obviously your backup keeper at the moment is Kinski, because Thomas Frank supposedly hasn't chosen his number one. So we're just hoping we get a £4 million goalkeeper. So kind of talks through the team, the structure. For me, if I say what surprised me when I first looked at it, very expensive in the defence. And then you've got two £5.5 million attackers and three 6.5s.
Right.
So you've got 5 attackers under the price of 6.5. So you've almost invested a lot of money into defence and taken a lot of it out of the attack. Talk us through it.
So the idea is basically to take advantage of the centre-back rule, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with higher bonuses and higher clean sheet odds. So I think Van Dijk and Murillo just feel like hygiene picks. Good clean sheet odds. They've been good last year in terms of delivering clean sheets, but also DEFCON points. So those two seem good, and I think they will be quite popular in a lot of teams. The double Arsenal defense is a little bit of a personal thing, that if I'm looking at wildcard 13, Arsenal's fixture run is actually very good after the first 5 fixtures. So if I don't go Arsenal now, the temptation to wildcard will grow higher and higher after game week 5.
Yes.
Because people will be thinking, should I get Gyökeres? Okay, if I'm going Gyökeres or Saka, I don't have time or transfers to get Saliba or Gabriel. So I'm thinking get ahead of the curve, because I'm fixed on game week, as things stand, I should say, on game week 13 wildcard. I want to get to that point. So therefore, getting my Arsenal defense in now makes sense. A lot of weeks, this is going to be 4 at the back, even 5 at the back. So I'm open to that. I know there's a little bit of hesitation to go more than 3 at the back, because we have been attuned to defenders are rubbish, they don't score FPL points. We need to change that. If Van Dijk, Gabriel, Murillo are scoring 170 points, there is no midfielder for 6 million or 5.5 million that can get that. Of course, I shouldn't say no, but we don't know of one yet. If they emerge, that's a different case. So for me, these guys are better than a 6 million midfielder or a 6 million attacker as things stand. So therefore, I'll play more 4 at the back, even 5 at the back if needed. That's why they're heavy at the back. That's the thoughts at the moment. In goalkeepers, I mean, at the moment, I've just put 5 and 4, because if, let's say, Kinski isn't the keeper, then 4.5 works.
Yep.
If you're planning a bench boost, and I'm planning one, not in game week 1 necessarily, but before my wildcard 1, you need to have 2 playing keepers.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter, actually, if both don't have perfect fixtures, get 2 playing keepers. That's the starting point. So that's on defense. Anything there, or before I move to attack?
No, I was just going to say, obviously, just before we recorded this, news that Trafford's to Man City at 5 million. Ederson is staying apparently as of right now, so he might not get the number 1 spot. But I do think if we find out Trafford's first choice, I think a lot of people will pivot towards Trafford.
100%. And that would then also possibly change strategy, because then if I have more City going into the wildcard, then maybe 6 isn't the best, because then I will have some City. So every one transfer changes everything.
Awesome.
So those are the thoughts in defense.
Oh, I will just say one thing, actually. Arsenal centre-backs look pretty rubbish for DEFCON points because they don't defend. And Konsa was like one of the low, I think it was like 45th for defenders or something crazy. So you've picked centre-backs, but 3 of them aren't very good for DEFCON. Is it because they're also good for clean sheets?
Yes. So Konsa rotates really well with Arsenal defenders.
Okay.
The times that Arsenal play Man City and Liverpool, Konsa plays Sunderland and home to Crystal Palace, I think. So this is what people need to think about in terms of their 5-man defense. It's not about picking the 5 best defenders. It's about who will you play at what times. And this is where projection models come into it as well. Like when we get more information, when these things are mapped out, when you look at your 12-week horizon, you'll be much better able to map out when do I play who. Right now, I'm doing this manually. Calculators are here. So, I mean, I would encourage people to think about that, but also just look at your back 5 in that context, that you need to think about rotation. Like I said, I want the Arsenal defenders, but I don't want to play them against Liverpool and Man City. I don't want to play them away to Newcastle, which is why free hit 6 becomes a consideration. But apart from that, both of them are splendid with clean sheet odds. If they don't get DEFCON points, and they do sometimes, it's not like they never.
Yeah, of course.
That's good. Like I want it. And people forget Gabriel, man, because he was injured.
Exactly. I think the injury is making us forget how good he is.
I mean, this guy is their second best attacker. I mean, so there is no chance if he's fit that he's not in my team. And Van Dijk the same, Murillo the same. So yes, I can compromise on Saliba if there's a cheap defender that becomes available, like an Anderson, that fits within a rotation. Anderson at Fulham is actually great for DEFCON points. If there's a rotation that works with him, I tried it, didn't work. Lacroix, another one for 5 million. If these guys become available, I'll take out $1 million if I need to. And that probably comes out of Saliba. So there is availability if I need to maneuver and go there.
Perfect. So midfield-wise, Anderson seems really, really nice at 5.5. So talk us through that as a pick.
Anderson basically lets you play him in any fixture whenever you want because he should give you 4 points. And then there is an upside because he's expected to take more corners and set pieces because Elanga and him were basically sharing set piece duties. Elanga is no longer there. So that just means more chances for creating expected assists. And when you get a 4-point floor, I like the guy any week. So he becomes my 7th attacker. That doesn't mean I play him every week because I could play 4 at the back as well.
Of course.
But he becomes a player I can play any game week. If I get an injury, I'm not pressed to make that transfer. So I like Anderson. Great for people looking at bench boost before their wildcard because he'll have a good fixture every week. He'll get a 4-point floor every week. So therefore, why not have him at your bench whenever you think the other 3 players are good? Sometimes you have your defenders all have great fixtures.
Yeah.
Put a great defender on your bench. Put Anderson on your bench. That's a good bench boost right there. So that's basically the thinking with him.
He gained 36 points through DEFCON last season. He would have anyway, which was 54% of his game. So as you say, more often than not, he should be getting. He's more likely to get them than not in a given game. And clean sheet points. Like you could be coming away with 5 points when he's done nothing really of note from an FPL perspective. And also potential bonus points. If it's sort of a really nothing-y game, where not much happens, maybe creates a couple of big chances. There is a world in which a central defensive midfielder comes away with like 7 points, having done absolutely nothing in FPL. Yeah. So yeah, I really, really like that as a pick. In terms of that front 3, I look at that and I think it's a bit weak. Like my perspective is like Solanke, I think is great. He's very underrated. The bandwagon seems to be hating him. I think he's a penalty taker. Good minutes he'll have. He is a fine finisher. We saw at Bournemouth. So I have no issue with that. But I think a 5.5 and then old man Welbeck, I do worry slightly about that as a front 3. And also in terms of where you can pivot, I don't think there are tons of cheap options. Does that worry you at all that you've only got one player at that price point in the attack?
So it'll depend on what I feel about a Gyökeres or if a Wissa moves to Newcastle and stuff like that. So it's not fixed, but in terms of structure, I like it because I like to put a lot of penalty takers in my team. Yeah. And I think a lot of the FPL community is getting there. That if I don't know between a Welbeck and a Strand Larsen, and if you tell me Strand Larsen is on penalties, Welbeck isn't, well, that's what will determine who I pick.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is rotation between them. I don't want to play Welbeck and if Leeds striker every single week, but I like the fact that if Muniz, for example, moves, he's on penalties, he's their main guy. Think of Pukki, think of these players that, or even Carlton Morris, like some people have. They're good bench fodders. They can get you points when you need it. If you can find a good rotation with either Anderson or Njai or Welbeck, where I only have to play 1 or 2 of them every week, that's what I'm trying to get to. I don't know if these guys will be the ones, but for the moment, Welbeck on penalties, Muniz if he moves on penalties, or Pirot, who's still at Leeds, who took a penalty 2 days ago in their preseason friendly. Njai is on penalties. I just feel like it's not too much I'm giving up. If I find that Wirtz is unstoppable, Marmoush is playing every single preseason game, I'll change. But I think going forward, where I'll get the money out is from Palmer. Palmer can come down to somebody in the 8 million price bracket, and then you bring your forward up to whoever you want later.
You anticipated my final critique, which is a critique of my own draft, which is there's no middle-priced midfielder.
Yeah.
So if, maybe not Rodgers is the best example, but 7-5-8, Cunha and Burmo, again, Foden, Marmoush, Wirtz, if any of them look good, you have to sell Palmer. And let's say Palmer and Salah are both absolutely tearing it up and you don't want to, then there's not an easy pivot place there particularly. The only way I could see it is maybe having to downgrade a defender and maybe Solanke and then, so it's like 3 or 4 transfers. But again, if you have that, then you don't have something else. So you can't have everything in FPL.
You can't have everything. And like I said, the 4th defender can be downgraded if I really wanted to. But I do feel having double Arsenal defense is going to be a little bit of an edge. Maybe that edge is in something else that I'll find over preseason.
I think if you're not bench boosting game week 1, I know you are, but Chris Richards really looks quite good. His minutes should be super secure this season at Crystal Palace. They're a very decent defence and he's very good for defensive contributions as well. I feel like they might have slightly mispriced him. Like if they're going to put Lacroix up, but not him, doesn't make a lot of sense. At first, when the game came out, I was like, why is Gahey so cheap? And then I looked and he just doesn't really manage to get the defensive contribution points.
And he did score, I think, 3 goals, but that's not, this is the thing. DEFCON contribution is a repeatable action.
Yeah.
Scoring goals, unless you're Gabriel, is not as repeatable.
I was going to say, unless you are Gabriel. Awesome. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it on your draft. I like it a lot. And I think it's just going to depend. The Gyökeres price, how Wirtz looks in pre-season, things like this. I think
Isak moves. I mean, that's a big one.
Yeah, again. Yeah. Do you think, so on Isak, do you think if Isak moves, let's say, to Liverpool, do you think that makes him a stronger asset? Because he'll lose penalties. He might have slight reduction in minutes, but playing in a team with much higher output.
My initial instinct is, yes, he'll still be a good pick, but think of like Watkins. So he'll be like a better Watkins. So without pens, you can still do well. But my gut feel is that it makes Salah worse.
I didn't want to say it, but I agree.
So the moment I heard the Isak news, the first thing I did was I took Salah out for Saka and I upgraded Muniz to Isak. And I was like, this looks pretty good. Liverpool attacker in Isak, Arsenal attacker. And then there's a good, nice little captaincy rotation between those three as well. So that was my first instinct. Now, going against Salah, we don't want to create sound bites here. But I feel if you have a Wirtz, if you have an Isak in your team, you already have a Gakpo, you will have Ekitike. I just think you have to reduce Salah's goal share. He cannot contribute 50% of goals in a team that has so many creators and goal scorers. Maybe I'm wrong.
And he's such a minutes monster and a fitness monster. I get that. But at some point, he's getting older each year. Like I think he'll start 37 games. I'm not expecting him, but slightly earlier subs are genuinely a possibility, especially when we get a little bit deeper into the season. So yeah, something to consider. This is the reason we're not really discussing like these are the list of 20 best cheap midfielders in this podcast, because like things change so much in preseason. Absolutely. Right. So on your screen, you'll now see my draft. I am leaning towards a bench boost one, but not as confident as Pras in that. And as a result, I've put probably a little bit less money in terms of spreading it around. My bench, you could look at and think it's an okay bench boost, but if I told you it wasn't a bench boost, you also wouldn't be that surprised. So
I think that's the way to go, to be honest.
Maybe.
Then you can pick any week.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got Sanchez in goal at the moment. Again, that's just a £5 million slot. I had Sells in there for ages, but then I quite liked having a Nottingham Forest defender. So I had Sells and Cucurella. And I was like, I can't justify going Sells and Cucurella when Sanchez and Williams is $1 million cheaper.
Yeah.
So it's just the combination. So yeah, I've got Sanchez in goal. My three defenders at the moment are Gvardiol, Williams, and Tarkowski. And then on the bench, I've got De Kauper and Konsa. I look at this, it's got a little bit of DEFCON. So Tarkowski, I think, will be great over the opening few weeks. Nico Williams is actually, in terms of fullbacks, one of the better ones because what we spoke about with Forest, they're not a very high possession-based team. And he's also quite a gritty defender. Like, he gets involved a lot. So he's not going to be as good as a centre-back, but that's why he's 0.5 cheaper. Right. He also took loads of set pieces as well towards the back end in terms of corners. So I don't know what the share is going to be like for Nottingham Forest. Obviously, if Anderson's taking all of them, then maybe not. But Nico Williams taking the odd set piece might be nice. And then Gvardiol being at centre-back, I think that's good. We've just said that actually centre-backs might be better off. I just don't know how much defending City ever truly do because they dominate the ball so much. Yeah,
if you were talking about the inverse correlation, I think City defenders, did he get even one? I don't know. I doubt it. So I think Gvardiol was one of those that didn't actually benefit too much. But then you can say the same for Arsenal. So if you're targeting clean sheets, then Gvardiol's great.
All I need is a goal from Ryan Aït-Nouri in pre-season, and I'm going to be going there. And then in terms of the other two defenders, again, Konsa not great for the points, but good clean sheet potential. And again, after the Newcastle game, the run of fixtures is so lovely. Yeah. And De Kauper is just a bit of fun. Like, I don't want to just pick defensive mids and centre-backs. I quite like the marauding fullback. And maybe I need to change my perspective on that, but I quite like it. In terms of the midfield, Salah and Palmer have been in like every draft of mine. I don't want to overthink that. It felt right from the get-go, and I'll probably end up with those two. And Ndai's been my 6.5 to go to ahead of Kudus. That's a good question for you. Ndai and Kudus, if you had to drop one and pick one only?
Ndai only because it's more predictable points. Kudus could be dropped. Like, Spurs have a lot of attackers. Now, again, Kudus fans, we just don't know. So the chance of you being wrong on Kudus is higher than chance of you being wrong on Ndai.
Absolutely. And then the other two midfielders are Rodgers and Anderson. Rodgers and Anderson are new additions. We just spoke about Anderson. He just feels really good at 5-5. And Brentford at home in game week 1. I think Brentford are going to struggle this season. I really do. I could see them having it. Without Thomas Frank, they've lost Mbeumo. They might be losing Wissa. I know defensively that might not technically impact them, but I think it does. It affects ball retention. It affects your outlet. So I could see them struggling. So it's a good game week 1 fixture too. Morgan Rodgers is the one I'm just starting to think more and more, are we overlooking him incorrectly? Because 7 million is a really awkward price, isn't it? Because lots of us can get to 6.5, and then you think, oh, if I'm not going there, I'll just go down to 5.5. Or you think, well, I'll go up to Acuna and Mbeumo Wirtz of 8.5. He's in that really in-between stage where there's not that many players, maybe like a Cliver. 19 returns last season, 37 starts. Yeah. Like, if we were to sit here together and not think of a player, but just list what we look for in an asset, really secure minutes, a team where there's not much goal share, which there's not at Aston Villa. It's normally Watkins or Rodgers, can get goals and assists, regardless of the system will play either way. I think he's great. And again, I think it's that Newcastle home fixture was the reason I wasn't picking him. I was like, Newcastle, not great. But then if you just remove that, which obviously you can't, but you remove that and look from 2 onwards, they've got the best fixtures in the league up until like game week 8 or 9.
Yeah, I mean, Villa is actually being underrated a little bit because there's no clear penalty taker.
Yeah.
I mean, Tielemans could take them. And if that's the case, he could be a decent pick. But I agree. I mean, Rodgers is good. But I go back to your point about the price point. Like if I go a little bit higher, I can get to an Eze who's on penalties and talismanic if he stays. If you go a little bit down, then there's other options. You can use that 0.5 somewhere else. So I do agree he's being overlooked. But, Unai Emery also loves the Europa League.
Yeah.
So now Rodgers will play probably all the games. But still, I want to watch who they sign and what the situation is at Villa because they haven't really replaced Asensio, Rodgers. McGinn is a year older. So we'll see. I'd
love to get Watkins in there, but Rodgers just feels more attainable, obviously 2 million cheaper. So my front three at the moment is Solanke, João Pedro, Welbeck. So the only difference is I've got So in terms of the differences between our teams, we've gone very different with the defence, but that's because you've got a very clear strategy and I'm still up in the air on that. I've got Rodgers rather than Kudus in there. And then I've got João Pedro rather than your Muniz. So I've basically just gone a little bit more expensive on 2 of my starting attackers and stripped a bit of money out of my bench and defence.
Right. So tell me about João Pedro. Like, I had to defend João Pedro last season from everyone. 5.5 million striker on penalties playing for Brighton. Now he's a 7.5 million striker, not getting 90 minutes and not on penalties.
I hate it and I love it. I can't work out how I feel about that. So I think Solanke is the standout 7.5. People won't like that, but I think good fixtures, playing for Thomas Frank. We've seen how well Wissa did for Thomas Frank. I think he'll get the best out of Solanke. I think his minutes are secure. People are saying they've got so many options. I don't see anyone starting ahead of Solanke on a regular basis and should be on pens. And Burnley at home in game week 1. So I like Solanke. From there, I'm like, I could justify it. I could go for Wissa if he stays, absolutely. Or he moves to Newcastle. Absolutely, I could go there. You could go for Chris Wood. Starts the season well. Forrest might rotate him a little bit more this year, but he scores goals. I want another mid-priced forward in there in terms of flexibility. I looked at, can I get an extra 0.5 and go to Bowen, potentially? Because I think he's being underrated just because he's moved from midfield to forward. I don't know where I stand on João Pedro. I think he's too good to be a rotation player. I'm not saying João Pedro is Palmer's level, but I think he's much better than some of their other attackers. He's Premier League proven. I could see him starting 90% of games for them, and I might be way off on that. And a lot of Chelsea fans are like, no, he's not going to start. But I think
he will start, but he'll get 60 odd minutes, 70 minutes.
Yeah, see, I think higher. And so I guess my X-bins for João Pedro is slightly higher than yours, but there's a real worrying concern. And it's like, just go for Chris Wood. Man. He's on penalties, good fixtures.
I mean, here's the thing with João Pedro. He's going to be very highly owned. I think he's the highest owned striker.
He's like 60-something percent, yeah.
First game, he gets subbed off on the 70th minute. There's a double price drop coming.
6.9 million before game week 2.
I mean, that's the number one red flag for me. I mean, not the number one, but you know how it is, how we get tempted when there's a price drop and we go, oh my God, I need to fix this. Even though your beliefs haven't changed.
Yep.
That's my one worry with going for a player that is very highly owned that you don't have 100% conviction on. Like, it's not like Delap's not getting any minutes. So he will come on. It depends on whether he comes on the 80th minute or the 65th minute. Yep. He will start some games. It depends if he starts in the first 5 game weeks or after that. So this is where I am. And there's also Jackson. What if they don't sell him by then? So I'm not there but I get it in terms of a price point. You can change that.
So I looked at, Rodgers and João Pedro could be a Dinger and Watkins, for example. So a 5-5 and Watkins. Right. And it's tempting. I just think as a pairing, Rodgers and João Pedro feel stronger. But I think Watkins and a nailed on 5-5 is probably better sort of for a set of minutes. And also you're getting potentially an extra penalty taker in Watkins. Like neither of these two here are going to be on pens.
Right.
So I've been going back and forth on that. But I think Palmer, Salah, a 6-5 normally in Dye, Welbeck, Solanke, they've been in a lot of my teams. Welbeck, I think we are overestimating his minutes just because of how old he is. And also they've signed that 18-year-old forward, I think from Olympiacos for like £32 million. It was a huge signing for them. I think there is a potential that his minutes are lower than we expect. But he looked so fit last season when he was available.
He was playing 90s.
Yeah.
Will take penalties, even took free kicks. So
I just worry that we're overestimating his minutes based on his age, mainly in his fitness record. But
probably
again, Strand Larsen there is an option potentially, and
it's good value for 6.5. If you can get a penalty taker for 6.5, Strand Larsen is great, especially he plays Man City first game, but after that, good as well.
Even Ilson's a player that is getting heavily overlooked. Your doppelganger, according to Alex Furlow. But I think last season, his numbers were outrageous. He was up there at like 0.6 non-penalty expected goal involvement for sort of the entire back half of the season, outperforming a lot of the bigger assets. I really like even Ilson. Could take the odd penalty as well when Kluivert's not on the pitch.
So
he's at that awkward price point again.
I mean, it's he plays Liverpool first game. People want to see a nice fixture game week 1. Second, Bournemouth have lost some key players in defense, but still, like, you know, how will that impact their build up from the back? They're a very high, high octane team that, you know, Huijsen and Kirkes and even Zabarni might go, or has he gone already? So when you lose your whole back line, it's very difficult to basically, you know, build up the structure. So people are a little bit more... Remember what happened to Palace last year when they lost a few key players. So it's just, I feel, not a no-brainer. He's not on penalties either. Good pick, but I think there's a reason why people will say, I'll go for a 6.5 penalty taker instead.
Awesome. I think that's it on the team then. Let us know what you think of the teams down below. Obviously, similar in nature, both bench boost one, some of the same types of assets, but I think only 8 out of the 15 or something like that are actually the same. So even if you go for a bench boost one, which becomes the template, there's still lots of positions that you can potentially fluctuate. And going for an attacking fullback rather than a centre back, I should say, is absolutely a viable alternative.
Yeah,
like if you can pick a defender like Munoz, who doesn't get many DEFCON points but gets so many attacking returns, then it could still pay off.
Absolutely.
So guys, I'm delighted to say that for season 2 of FPL Therapy, we'll be continuing to be sponsored by Club, which is a free-to-play fantasy football mobile game for which I am a shareholder, and I'm also a character in the game as well. And Pras will be getting more involved with Club this season too, and you've been playing quite a lot actively as well, so we'll take a look at your team in a second. But it's had some major updates. So just to show you my team firstly, I am way over the salary. I'm 9.5 million over the salary cap, which means by the deadline, I need to release some players. Otherwise, they won't actually be able to play for my team. But I've got some really nice picks there. Speaking of DEFCON, I've got Caicedo in there who'll be really, really good on Club. I'll collect my cash now. In a minute, Pras is going to meet with Agent Manny to hopefully get us a decent player. But the big change this year is that you upgrade like different elements of the club. So it feels much more like you are actually the football owner of a club rather than it being simply just like fantasy football. So they're added some different elements. So I'll upgrade my training ground. And I will collect there's me. I'll collect my upgrade in my transfer coins as well. And then once you've gone through all of those stages, you can upgrade your club to the next level. But do you want to meet with Manny? Try and get me a decent player, and then we'll discuss what your team looks like.
Now that I'm playing, maybe it's not a good player. Maybe I'll have a...
I would like at least a rare, preferably not a core. Or an elite. I mean, if you want to get me an elite, you can.
It's a core. It's a core defender. Sorry.
You're sabotaging.
Brentford defender.
You're sabotaging 77. Me.
I don't think I've ever got a 77.
I think that's the first time I've got it. I'm level 5, Pras. What's this? Okay, I'm going to reject that because obviously it doesn't suit my team.
No hard feelings.
What is your team looking like then?
So I have got, I actually like my team. So the superstars, I've got Wirtz.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've got Frimpong.
Okay.
And for the weeks where Frimpong doesn't play, I have Bradley, who's actually a core player. So you can rotate Frimpong and Bradley depending on who plays. Other guys, I have Ilanga and Johnson in attack, who I think could do well as my forwards. I've got Areola in my... actually, my defense is really good. I have got De Kuyper, Byrne, Nunes.
You've been playing a lot then.
I have been playing a lot. I am level 6 now, so I was surprised to hear you're level 5. And yeah, I've been playing a lot.
Yeah, you've been smashing it. Okay, fair play. I need to up my game, clearly. But if you want to get involved, Pras and I will be talking about it throughout a lot of content this season, but I genuinely recommend it. Like, I'll be entirely honest, I normally am not a big mobile game person. This is probably the only mobile game I have, but it's just brilliant. It's fantasy football mixed with like club ownership, Football Manager, FIFA, all sort of rolled into one. Lots of people saying, is it like a pay to win? No, not at all. Like, it's completely free to play. And the good thing about it is, even let's say you were to try and pay to win, the higher rated players don't ever actually do very well. Yeah. Like last season, I had a superstar team like Salah and Haaland, and it was like 78 rated players were the ones getting the points because it's real life, not like a FIFA. So yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. There'll be a link down below in the description on audio and on YouTube. It would really support me if you check it out. Just give it a download and plan. If you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. But you'll be hearing much more about FPL Therapy and hopefully about Club in FPL Therapy. And hopefully in future episodes, we'll get better players than a 77 rated centre back.
Who was it, by the way, the 77?
Aya.
Okay.
Not even a good one particularly. So yeah, check it out and let's get back to the episode. Awesome. So we've also got sort of a few questions that people sent in. I think some of them we've kind of discussed, but we'll just go back over them. So someone asked, how important is an 8th attacker for you, Pras? How good do they have to be? £4.5 million bench fodder, 5 million just in case you need them. Would you spread the money and have someone like Ndai or Welbeck as your cheapest attacker? Like, how do you feel about having a deep 8 attackers?
It ties to your bench boost strategy. So I see a lot of people with a non-playing 4.5 forward, which is fine if you intend to do your bench boost after your wildcard, so you can fix it. Or if you're happy to use up a transfer, right? I mean, later you can just downgrade Palmer, upgrade your striker. So if you want to be long-term steady and not use transfers, then I like 15 good players, if it's possible. And so therefore I will, of course, if there's a gem that you love for 5 million, then you'll get that. But I think I'm happy to have a 5.5 million striker as my 8th attacker, or my Anderson or Ndai as my basically 6th, 7th, 8th attackers.
Perfect. This is a very interesting question. I feel like this isn't going to be for you, but let's talk about it. Lots of people are taking risks on bench boost in Game Week 1, with Salah traditionally being a fast starter and Liverpool playing at home in Game Week 1. How do you feel about triple captain? Again, traditionally a very disappointing chip that, I mean, I played it in Game Week 9 last season. I think, did you as well?
I did as
For
well,
the 6-pointer from Haaland.
Yeah.
So it's unpredictable when these players will go big. If he's playing at home, again, in Game Week 1, he always does really well. He's a fitness monster, so he's not going to take a while to get back up to full fitness. Do you mind it?
No. Like triple captaincy, this first half, there's no double game weeks, right? Normally we would stop you and say, wait for double game week. But of course, there's a possibility of one happening, but the odds are very low. So if there's a week that you really feel it, now I should say, if you get 5 heads, doesn't mean next time the chances of a heads is more than 50%.
Yeah.
So just because Salah has scored in the opening day doesn't mean his odds are any higher. Like there's no extra power he gets in Game Week 1. It just happens to be something that has happened. So, but if you can avoid that, and if you still think that if Game Week 1 is good, then go for it.
I was thinking about like why do certain players. I think it's it's fitness and it's mentality. Like, like some players will start the season nervous, or they'll take a little bit of a while to get like back into their fitness. Like Salah would have been in the gym every day over the summer, and he's got that mentality of I want to score on the opening day. So I think there is something behind it psychologically. But again, it doesn't make him any more likely to go and score a hat trick just because he did well against Norwich a few seasons ago.
But to be honest, Bournemouth, they, like we said, Bournemouth have lost a lot of defenders. So when is the best time to attack them is maybe when they haven't gelled. So I don't hate it.
I want to talk about Haaland just briefly, because I don't even know if we've mentioned his name really at any point throughout the podcast. I genuinely don't think Haaland versus Salah is I think it's a lot closer than people are giving it credit for. It's like, obviously you go Salah.
Yeah.
I think Haaland's a really viable alternative. Now, on your strategy, no, because you're free hitting in 6 when you'd want to captain him. But let's say someone's not on a free hit 6. You've got Haaland against Burnley in 6. It is an alternative to go for Haaland rather than Salah.
Absolutely. I think if your mindset of playing FPL this year is that I want to win it, not that I want to finish in a good rank, then one very viable strategy is to say, I'm going to take on Salah with Haaland. Now, it massively backfired last year, but it doesn't mean it'll backfire again. Like City have now, Rodri's back, they've basically added in their attack. So Haaland is very viable. It's just that Salah had this season that you cannot explain on how he did so well. Will he have that again? You'd never know. So if you want to take him on and you want to say, I want to go Haaland instead of Salah, even save some money and then use it more than the crowd, and then Haaland does better than Salah, you're laughing.
I just think you need to not panic as well. Because I remember Game Week 1 last season, I started with Salah and not Haaland. Salah outscored Haaland, and I was like, I'm a genius. Yeah. And then game weeks 2, 3, 4, 5 came around, and I was just getting absolutely battered every single week. So I think you need to stick to your guns for at least a few weeks at a time and then assess. But you could plan to start with Haaland and then wildcard Salah back in around 7 or 8. Just try the opening 6, see how it goes, get to that game week 6 fixture, and then bring Salah back in. I really don't mind that. And just because he did well last season doesn't guarantee a 300-point season from
Correct.
Salah.
And it's high risk and high reward, right? So high risk comes with also potential losses. Like it could also backfire massively, which is why I said if your goal is not to basically have a decent rank, but to actually win, then go for it if you want.
Cool. Right. So we've got some quick fire questions, and I added something. I want to talk about Man United briefly with you because obviously as 2 Manchester United fans. But right. So for the quick fire questions, some of this we've already discussed, but it's just a kind of recap. You can give up to 5 seconds as an answer, or you can just kind of go for it with one word.
Right.
All good? Bench boost game week 1, yes or no?
Yes.
Who's your favourite £7.5 million forward?
Solanke.
Who is your favourite £4.5 million defender?
Anderson from Fulham.
Who is the best midfielder 6 million or below?
Anderson from Nottingham Forest.
The two Andersons. Who is one player that you think is going slightly under the radar at the moment?
That's a tougher one. I'll have to give that one a bit of thought.
You can give it thought.
I think Spurs assets in general. So I can pick Solanke as well here because
Perfect.
I think new manager. It's just
Thomas Frank's the real
People
deal.
have the old Spurs mindset.
Absolutely. Perfect. Right, let's talk about Man United. Where do you think we're going to finish? Based on what? Let's say we don't manage to get a proper forward, which it doesn't look very likely. Let's say we don't manage to pick up a midfielder, which doesn't look very likely. Let's say we stick roughly with where we're at. Maybe we pick up a goalkeeper. What's a good season for us? Where do we expect to be?
Top 6, I think, is a good ambition.
That's
now,
ambitious.
it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking the top 3 are very hard to break into for anyone. So Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool. Then you get into the next tier, which is basically Chelsea. You can put Newcastle, Villa in there. So in that 3, you can try to break into it. You don't have to come 4th. You don't have to come 5th. So this is why I said top 6. So one of those 3, I think you can upend. But you also have to factor in a Bournemouth or a Brighton or a Nottingham Forest having a season like, what Nottingham Forest did last year. But I think those teams will have Europe. I mean, Brighton and Bournemouth don't, but Nottingham Forest will have Europe. True. Newcastle, how much they prioritize the Champions League this year. So I think there's opportunity. Man United are not playing midweek except for the cup games. So there is that opportunity. And they've got players that are minutes monsters, talisman, that will fix the problem, which was goals.
Speaking of, lots of questions around Cunha and Mbeumo and Ahmad. Like, in terms of output at Manchester United this season and value for money, who stands out, especially between the new boys, Cunha and Mbeumo? Does one stand out that you think will suit our system slightly more and get more goals and assists?
I think Cunha will become more of a chance creator, so alongside Bruno, and Mbeumo might take the goal scoring. So that's my gut instinct. Now, their error bars are very high when you have a new team with new attackers. But I think from an FPL point of view, you like goals more than chances created. But then Cunha could be good on bonus as well. But he's competing with the biggest bonus monster in the game.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard for Cunha to get there. But you could see a game where it's an assist Cunha, assist Bruno, goal Mbeumo, goal another striker or something like that. So
I think there's a small chance in some games, especially if Rasmus and Xerxes struggle again, that we might see Cunha as the 9 with Bruno and Mbeumo. I can't wait for the first game that Amorim lines up with Brian Mbeumo at right wing back and everyone has a meltdown because he's playing him in defence.
I mean, him and Ahmad playing and interchanging is very possible. I think set pieces is also important here. Like Bruno generally likes to take the set pieces. Penalties.
These are both better set piece takers for me as well.
They're better set piece takers from each side. Cunha can take the left-hand side and Mbeumo can take the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Bruno will give up corners.
Yeah.
I think he may even give up free kicks. Maybe not direct free kicks.
Not penalties though.
Not penalties.
That was another question I got because obviously all 3 are fantastic penalty takers as well. Bruno's taking the penalties.
I think
we saw even when Ronaldo was there that Bruno was still taking penalties. So I wouldn't be surprised. He might give... I don't know, if Cunha and Mbeumo, it's game week 5 and they've still not scored.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that before. He gave one to Rashford before. He's a team player, but I think if under normal circumstances, he probably takes them.
I mean, FPL-wise, if there was a double game week and you could pick only one player, I'm still picking Bruno, even though he's $1 million more than the others.
I do think he's overpriced though at 9 million.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I won't have him in my game week 1 team, but let's say I have a free hit.
Yeah.
Free hit game week 3, I think Bruno is home to Burnley.
Yeah.
So I'm having Bruno over anybody else if I get only one Man United slot because of the options of him getting DEFCON points as well as these attacking returns that he can get.
I'm tempted to free hit in 3 just so I can have triple Man United for one game week in the season. Dorgu at 4.5. That stands out to me as an okay 4.5 pick. I know people won't like the United defence, but he had so much attacking threat. Again, he was running at like 0.4, 0.5 XGI for the last few game weeks. He's got attacking threat like not many players have because of the system that we play, but also he's both footed. He can play on either wing. He's very, very comfortable in the attack. I could see him and Cunha on that left-hand side linking up extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, 5 at the back teams also suffer from this problem of the centre-backs will share the DEFCON points, right?
That's true.
Now, in Lacroix's case, he took them over and he was basically the talisman in the DEFCON points. This is going to be a thing now. The DEFCON talisman. I don't think Man United have one yet. Maybe Maguire becomes one. I don't see him breaking play as much. So it's shared.
Yeah.
So therefore, picking a defender, whether Dorgu plays every game or Dalot plays some games or Ahmad plays some games, maybe we just see so much rotation that none of them are picks. But yes, in terms of potential, Dorgu is on a has a trajectory which is good from an attacking point of view, and clean sheets are also improving.
Is there a team in the Prem that you think could have that Nottingham Forest-esque season? Like that you think, so we spoke about you've got that top three. I reckon Chelsea, by the way, are comfortably the team most likely to break into that top three. Is there a team that stands out of those Bournemouths, Brightons, Forest that you think could have that kind of season? We should maybe be looking at some of the assets from?
From attackers, yeah, Bournemouth and Brighton are always the two. Fulham always threaten to do it, but they're a solid team.
That's the issue. Yeah.
If you ask anyone, where do you expect Fulham to finish? Between 9th and 11th. Everyone will have that answer because they don't expect anything more. They don't expect them to have a bad season either. So, but the high ceiling, like I think Nottingham Forest might struggle with the European duty. You remember Burnley once made it into the Europa League and then they had a terrible season after that. Now, I don't think Forest will have a terrible season, but they will suffer when you have a thin squad and your main players are playing every game. So I think Bournemouth and Brighton would be my two shouts. Brentford have come down quite a bit. If you're looking at teams, the next Nottingham Forest and Everton, you need to look at the manager. You need an old school manager. You don't want the new style manager. You want managers who think defense first.
Defend the way to
You
get
have the ball. We'll deal with it.
Yeah.
So actually, Burnley could accumulate a lot. Now, Scotty Parker is in an old school, he's not old, but he does have an old school management style.
Yeah, I think I think Brighton have threatened for a long time to have like they've had spells where they can win like 4-0 in consecutive games and then where they can't beat anyone. So Brighton just need to string together a solid all-round season. I could see them doing well. And Palace have just continuously just start the season so badly.
Palace,
So if Glasner can get a tune out of them early doors, I could see Palace doing quite well as well. But I think it'll be an interesting season. In terms of what I said I'd be very happy with 9th.
Really?
So I think you're more ambitious than... we finished 15th last year, Pras.
Yeah, but, look, I mean, we changed priorities. I think after 2/3 of the season...
Yeah, maybe.
The league wasn't priority. I think if you were to play the whole season without Europe, last season even, we would be 10th, maybe. So I'm not defending that it would be great. But if you don't end up with another season of no Europe, that would be devastating.
I just worry, bar like Bruno and Burmo and Cunha, like those three, and maybe Ahmad. I'd look at our team versus Newcastle, Villa, Chelsea. They wouldn't take any of our players. Like I don't think our team is as good.
Yeah, and then you need functional players alongside the superstars, right? So
I guess we need Cunha and Mbeumo to bring the goals. I think because we're not going to sign a 9 by the looks of it.
Just sign DCL or Vardy and then just good to go.
I'm not buying DCL and FPL. Right, cool. Right, that is us done, Pras. Thank you very much. A little bit of a shorter one, but I think like at this stage again, there's no point hyperfixating on exactly which player you pick in every position. I would advise off the back of this that people have a sit down with an Excel spreadsheet or a bit of paper, touch some grass maybe, but I would sit down and just have a bit of a plan and think philosophically, how do you want to go about this first half of the season? Do you want to go early aggressive? Do you want to wait? Do you want to really plan out when you're going to use all the chips? Or are you just going to say, I'm just going to put a team together that I like and I'll think about when I play the chips later? Like, I think that's the best thing that people can do at this early stage.
Yeah, and also have a little bit of a view on team strengths. So right now, the thing you can do is, what do I think of Brentford? What do I think of, the discussion we've just had? And then try to go down further into what fixtures, who has good fixtures. Man City could be bottom of the fixture ticker, but they're still, the second or third best, arguably the best team in the league. Yeah. So I think that team strength, watching preseason for minutes, not for form, not necessarily for form, that's the other thing.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, if you have enjoyed this first episode back, I'm a little bit rusty, but we are getting there. Please do make sure to rate 5-star if you listen on audio. If you're watching on YouTube, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe most importantly. Do check out Pras. I'll link his X or Twitter down below. Check out the FPL Wire, Solio Analytics as well. Yes. Fun things planned for that?
Solio Analytics is a new planning tool. And it'll be launched early August, and it's basically help people map out some of these projections and how their team looks. It's market-based, so a lot of people, a lot of listeners will be used to Rob T's graphics.
Yes, yeah.
So a lot of that feeds into this, so that'll be something people recognize.
Perfect. Well, I'll link all of that down below. Hope you have a fun rest of your preseason tinkering. There'll be an episode next week and the week after that as well, so make sure to check it out. Subscribe, rate 5-star. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye.